Good morning, Scotland. Good morning, social media land. I hope you are well. It is Tuesday, the 25th of April, 2023. If there was ever a time to wake up and fight for your liberty, now would be it. The Anglo-British nationalist state are coming for Scottish democracy. Already, they have denied democratic mandates, processed a power grab with the Internal Markets Act, flexed their ability to undermine Scottish legislation with the use of a Section 35 order, and more callously fought and quashed Scotland's ability to legislate the UN Children's Charter into Scottish law for our kids. But it gets worse. Meet David Frost, Tory peer, Telegraph columnist and a genuine hater of Scottish democracy. His tweets show a fervent hatred of the SNP and a willingness to dismantle devolution in Scotland. I wonder what that would be like. No more free tuition for higher education, under 22s no longer having a free bus pass, paying for prescriptions, a hard march to right-wing politics and a private NHS. But more importantly, would be stuck in the paradigm of Westminster values, where we have no say in the future of our own country. Anyway, not happy with just tweeting about how terrified he is about the Scottish political power, he took to his column in the Telegraph and stated it's time to fix Scottish devolution. Ministers should make it clear that if re-elected, they will review and roll back some currently devolved powers. In particular, Scotland does not need to be an independent actor on the world stage. It should not be able to legislate to disrupt free trade within the UK, and it does not need to have more tax-raising powers than are currently available to it. Back in 1997, over 60% of the electorate engaged in a referendum to deliver a devolved parliament, and 80% of those who voted in favour of it wanted it to have tax-raising powers. The only reason he is suggesting this is because he's a coward, too afraid to have his country go it alone without the Scottish dividend received by the Treasury. Now the theme is set, let me explain the actual point of this video. I want to make it very clear that what David Frost is suggesting is quite possible. Westminster could easily dismantle devolution piece by piece. All the mechanisms are in place for them doing so. It would not be pretty, and there would be an absolute uproar if they did. But they could do it. So where does that leave independence? Without a devolved political power base, the political route to independence would be dead. We have to consider that right now, our political strategy to deliver independence is under siege and may well be permanently hamstrung, never being able to deliver our liberty. We now have to take a long, hard look at the future of the independence movement. If politics is not going to deliver independence, then what will? Perhaps by utilising the same strategy that brought us a referendum in 1997 that gave us devolution could also be mapped out to deliver independence. Well, that's exactly what the Scottish Liberation Movement intends to do. So what's the plan? First, we need people, lots of people, enough to grow the SLM greater in numbers than our largest political entity in Scotland. And we have them. They're out there, the yes voters, at least 1.6 million of us. Some are bogged down by the evolution of the yes movement from the blue flag of yes in 2014 to the multicoloured yes flag of the present day, and how it has become politicised by indie MSPs and parties who all say that their way is the only way to independence. I want to point out again that any party that plays within the rules of the oppressor will never deliver independence. Any party that claims that they work for the people of Scotland, but within the framework of a parliamentary democracy, rather than accepting that the people of Scotland are sovereign and hold the power, are also pulling the wool over your eyes. Look, the Scottish Liberation Movement is not here to rival politics, but to demonstrate to the international community that there is a genuine, credible, non-political and peaceful liberation movement here in Scotland that wants to have a grown-up discussion about our liberty outside the glass ceiling of devolved politics. Consider 10% of the 1.6 million yes voters in 2014 were to join the liberation movement. That shows a sincere credibility on the international international stage. Credibility allows us to engage in conversations within the halls of the United Nations and the international courts, and those conversations will place us on a credible path to liberty. There's obviously nuances and details for engaging with such entities, and as we grow and progress, these will be published in a transparent format. But let me say, this is no pipe dream. We already had a presence on the world stage when we had the United Nations Scottish Committee, and it was this committee that walked the halls of the United Nations and engaged in the right conversations and delivered the referendum that gave us devolution. We have done this before, and we can most definitely do it again. And the beauty of it is, there's not a damn thing that Westminster can do about it. I say let them try and dismantle our Parliament. By their own legislation, Section 63A/3 in the Scotland Act 2016, titled Permanence of the Scottish Parliament and the Scottish Government, clearly states that, in view of the commitment, it is declared that the Scottish Parliament and the Scottish Government are not to be abolished except on the basis of a decision of the people of Scotland voting in a referendum. How about that then, Frosty boy? Are you going to hamstring us with rolling back devolved powers and then get your propaganda machine to start dropping a "what's the point of devolution" bombs on the front pages every day, conditioning those that can't see your veil of deception? I'd like to see you try. You have to remember that 50% or more of the electorate in Scotland want independence, so Westminster would be forcing us to take a liberation movement route to obtain liberty, so bring it on. By any action to limit devolution, you legitimise our movement. Before we finish up, let's take a second and examine the future ability of Scottish politics to deliver independence. We can simply answer this by understanding that as long as the SNP, the Scottish Greens and ALPA play by the rules of the oppressor and emulate a parliamentary democracy model of governance exactly the same as Westminster, they will not deliver independence. That's why they will never recommend the Scottish liberation movement as a feasible route to liberty. This is because it removes them, the politicians, from the equation, and they no longer play a vital role in delivering independence. Their precious egos could not take being removed from the centre of something so historic, where most of us are in actual fact are just here for the cause, not for glory, not for ego, and not to monetize our social media. We're just here to deliver our liberty. If they were serious about it, they, the politicians, would be talking about the Scottish liberation movement and engaging internationally on this basis as we want to. But instead, they see us as a threat to their hegemonous political agendas. They will belittle us and they will attack us, pretty much in the same way that Westminster attacks them, because Westminster sees the independence parties as a threat, the same way as the indie parties see an organised liberation movement as a threat. Funny that, eh? All we want to do is be free. And now the only route to freedom appears to be leaving the politicians to squabble and to move on as a people. So speak to your indie friends and family and understand that you can still follow your political parties and engage in healthy debate with their rivals. But it will do no harm at all, to support the same principled values that campaigned in 2014, that was not political and was not following the banners of parties, but just engaged with the values of liberty and took us from 20% voting yes to 45%. It's all about the people. It's not about the politics. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and good luck.